The last passenger on Bus 13. The rain had been falling for hours, turning the empty streets into shimmering rivers under the glow of broken streetlights. It was almost midnight when Daniel, a bus driver with over 15 years of experience, climbed into Bus 13 for his final route of the night. Most drivers hated Bus 13. They joked that it was cursed. Some refused to drive it after sunset. Daniel laughed at the stories. He believed ghosts only existed in people's imaginations. That night would change everything. The dispatcher handed him the keys without saying a word. Daniel noticed the man's hands trembling. "Everything okay?" he asked. The dispatcher looked at him with pale eyes. "If someone gets on after the Old Mill stop." He paused. "Don't look into their eyes." Daniel laughed. "What kind of joke is that?" The dispatcher simply walked away. The engine started with a deep growl. As Bus 13 rolled into the rainy streets, the windshield wipers squeaked back and forth like tired bones. The first few stops were normal. Office workers, college students, an old woman carrying groceries. By the time the bus reached the edge of town, only 6 passengers remained. Nobody spoke. The silence inside the bus felt unusually heavy. Even the sound of the rain seemed distant. Daniel glanced in the rearview mirror. Everyone stared straight ahead without moving. No phones, no conversations, just silence. The next stop was Old Mill Road. It was an abandoned area surrounded by thick forest. No one ever waited there. Tonight, however, someone did. A tall figure stood beneath the flickering bus stop light. He wore a long black coat soaked by the rain. His face was hidden beneath the shadow of a wide-brimmed hat. As the doors opened, icy air rushed inside the bus. The man climbed aboard without making a sound. He handed Daniel an old silver coin instead of a bus ticket. The coin was freezing cold. Daniel frowned. "Sir, this isn't valid." The stranger slowly lifted his head. His smile was impossibly wide. "I know." Something about his voice made Daniel's skin crawl. He dropped the coin into the fare box anyway. The moment the doors closed, every light inside the bus flickered. One by one, the passengers turned their heads toward the stranger. Nobody said a word. The stranger walked slowly to the very last seat. His footsteps echoed much louder than they should have. Daniel looked into the mirror. The stranger was sitting perfectly still, watching him. Then something strange happened. At the next stop, a teenage boy pressed the stop button. The doors opened. The boy stepped outside. Daniel closed the doors and drove away. Seconds later, he glanced into the mirror. The seat where the boy had been sitting was gone. Not empty. Gone. As if that entire row had never existed. Daniel slammed on the brakes. He looked again. The bus had somehow become shorter. His heartbeat quickened. What? None of the remaining passengers reacted. They simply stared ahead. 10 minutes later, another passenger rang the bell. An elderly woman slowly stepped off the bus. Again, Daniel drove away. Again, he checked the mirror. Another row had disappeared. Now there were only 4 passengers. And the stranger. Daniel grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, do you copy?" Only static answered. Then a whisper. "Keep driving." The voice wasn't from dispatch. It sounded like dozens of people speaking at once. He switched the radio off immediately. Sweat rolled down his forehead despite the freezing temperature. The road ahead looked unfamiliar. He had driven this route hundreds of times. Yet somehow the city had disappeared. There were no buildings, no street signs, only endless darkness and towering trees. The GPS screen was completely black. The bus clock froze at exactly 12:13 a.m. Time had stopped. Another passenger left. Another row vanished. The stranger never moved. He simply watched. His smile grew wider every time someone disappeared. Daniel's breathing became faster. Finally, only one passenger remained besides the stranger. A little girl holding a stuffed rabbit. She couldn't have been older than 8. She quietly walked toward the front of the bus. "Mister?" Her tiny voice barely rose above the sound of the engine. "Yes?" When he asks, she looked over her shoulder. "Don't answer." Before Daniel could ask who she meant, the stop bell rang by itself. The bus stopped even though nobody had pressed the brakes. The doors slowly opened. Outside was nothing but darkness. No road, no buildings, only thick black fog. The little girl smiled sadly. I have to go. She stepped into the darkness. The doors closed. Daniel looked into the mirror. The entire back half of the bus had vanished. Only his driver's seat. And the stranger remained. The man slowly stood. His joints cracked loudly. 1, 2, 3. Each step toward Daniel sounded like thunder. Daniel's hands shook violently. What do you want? The stranger stopped inches behind him. Then he whispered, I've been riding this route for 80 years. Daniel could feel the man's icy breath against his neck. Every night, another whisper, I take everyone home. Daniel squeezed his eyes shut. When he opened them again, the stranger's reflection was missing. He spun around. The man was standing directly in front of him now. His face wasn't human. Where his eyes should have been were endless black holes. His mouth stretched from one ear to the other. Inside it, there were no teeth, only darkness. The stranger held out the same silver coin. You forgot your change. The coin fell into Daniel's trembling hand. The instant his fingers touched it, memories flooded his mind. Hundreds of bus drivers. Hundreds of terrified faces. All driving Bus 13. All ending the same way. None of them ever reached the depot. The stranger smiled. It's your stop now. Daniel screamed. Everything went black. The next morning, police found Bus 13 parked neatly inside the depot. The engine was still running. The doors were wide open. Daniel was nowhere to be found. The only thing left behind was a freezing cold silver coin resting on the driver's seat. The company searched for weeks. No body was something impossible. On rainy nights, just after midnight, an old city bus appears through the fog. Its destination sign flickers with one chilling message. Last stop. People who wave it down say the driver never speaks. He simply opens the doors. His face is pale. His eyes are filled with terror. And in the very last seat, barely visible through the rain-covered window, a man in a black coat smiles patiently, waiting for the next passenger.